Alrighty, well, first and foremost, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and sit down and chat with me. Uh, kind of start this off, do you want to give us your full name, your age, and where you grew up?
Sure. George Andrew Kruzick grew up in the suburb of Peoria, Morton, pretty much all my life. I was born in Springfield, but my dad transferred to Peoria here when I was a year and a half old. So pretty much this is all I've known. Currently, I'm 60 years old. Um, been involved in the league since 1983. My first year in the league, I played for 28 years, and then I quit playing in 2010, and then I managed a team, started managing a team back in 2020, and I've been managing for the last 4 years, I guess, since then. So, still been kind of connected to the league, even though I didn't play for those years in between there. Still had some connections to the league with friends, some friends playing still, and would still go out and catch a few games. Um, the first team I played on was for Todd Uniforms. Actually, Daryl Klusendorf was the manager, and he actually called me and asked me to play. And a lot of times, the managers back then, that's how they would do it. And we actually had contracts back then. Had to sign a contract, and then that manager could trade you if you wanted to with another manager. We don't, as a current manager, I don't. The contracts are kind of by the wayside. So right now it's a lot of buddy system. If you have a kid playing and he's got a buddy that wants to play, they're more apt to be on the same team because they want to play together, and they're more apt to show up. So that's kind of what we also have a tryout every year. I don't think we had a tryout back when I played, but that's something that Tim Cundiff started, which is a good idea. Had a lot of players come in the league through that tryout, which is good. And yet, over the years, the league has evolved from, we used to start in April and we'd play a few more games because we started earlier, but the rosters were not as many college kids, so you had enough guys to play in April. And now it's turned into more of a collegiate league. There's still some veterans mixed in there, but the majority of the league is collegiate, so we don't start till end of May when the kids are home from college, and it's more of a condensed season. Not as many games, but we still get 24, 25 games in. So, started out as aluminum, and then I think about somewhere around the early 2000s, maybe, it turned into a wood league. I was still playing when it was wood. I remember, so 28 years. Yeah, it was probably the last 8 years were wood for me in the league, and that was a bit of a challenge for me because I was older, 40 years old, playing against college kids, and I'm swinging a wood bat instead of aluminum bats. So, but it was an adjustment. But actually, ended up learning to hit with the wood bats. Took a year or two, but then it's actually I actually like the league better as a wood bat, more traditional wood. So, well, you want to go with another question? You want me to just keep rambling,
no,
or you just want me to keep going?
No, you're good. I was going to say a little bit of this study is mostly about the Sunday morning league, but also a little bit about baseball, and more than just industrial baseball. So, would you mind telling us kind of how you got involved in baseball as a young age, and then maybe how that impacted your social life growing up?
Sure. So I grew up in the 70s, and my dad played, so of course we started we had a neighborhood full of kids, and everybody played. So that's all we did. I probably started when I was 5 years old, 6 years old playing, and then I was one of those kids that would be waiting for my dad to come home so we'd go out and play catch when he got home. We also had a nice vacant lot at the end of our block. Had a nice field set up. It was on a curve, and it was grass, but then the curve was the road. So it was a perfect outfield. Anything over the road was a home run, and we played there in the summer. I remember playing all day, every day, not coming home till parents would make me come home for dinner and take my hat off when I come in the house. As soon as dinner was over, we'd rush back out and play again. So played a lot of baseball growing up, and sandlot. Not only baseball, we played wiffle ball. We played with a tennis ball, threw against the wall like a cork ball, but we didn't use a stick cork bat. We either use a taped up wiffle ball bat or aluminum bats. So there was no shortage of baseball growing up.
Yeah, and then did you end up playing baseball in high school?
So I played in high school all 4 years, and I also played 4 years of college. I played for Morton. Our senior year, we had a real good team. We were 31-8. We actually have the most wins in school history there. Won the first regional at the school, and we got beat in the sectionals to Spalding, which had several good players on that team. I can actually name their starting lineup. Well, Joe Girardi was their catcher, if you know who that is. He played for the Yankees and the Cubs. First base was Mark Myers. He went to the University of New Orleans on a baseball scholarship. Second baseman was actually a basketball player, 6'4", Terry Smith. Good basketball player, but he also played second base, which was kind of rare for a tall second baseman. Shortstop was Mark Hopkins. He went to Western and played baseball. Third base was a guy named Matt Abraham, I believe. It was an Abraham. I'm not sure if that was his first name. Ty Elliott played center. He went to play at Lincoln, and then Illinois Wesleyan. Right field was Shanahan, and their best pitcher was a guy named Harold Donnelly, and he pitched at Western. Him and Mark Hopkins went there together. So we had a pretty good team ourselves. Our catcher went to the University of Louisville on a baseball scholarship, and ended up being all rookie. His freshman year, he had 13 homers as a freshman at the University of Louisville.
Wow.
Bo Cleveland was his name, and we had two left-handed pitchers that won the majority of our games. Like I said, we were 31-8, and those two probably had 20 of those 31 wins. And I played infield. I played shortstop, and just a real good team. A lot of fun memories from that team.
And what was it like switching from high school to then playing in college?
So yeah, it's college. College was a step above. Everybody there was all conference, at the college level. So you had to keep improving and keep getting better. Basically, I went to ICC my first 2 years. It was a lot of Pekin, East Peoria, Central, Woodruff kids that all played, and were all Pekin all-conference kids. I was competing for a shortstop position there. What ended up happening was our catcher was from Washington, a real good athlete named Dan Witzig. Played basketball too at Washington. He ended up getting hurt in the fall with a collision at the plate, hurt his knee, and then in the spring he couldn't play. And then our other catcher was from Peoria High, named Jerry Heinley. He was ineligible. That's a great. So I ended up catching because coach needed another catcher, and I had caught a little bit. Like I said, Bo Cleveland got that scholarship when he was a sophomore. He played varsity, so as a sophomore I caught some. So I had caught before, besides playing infield. And then one thing, so then I played there 2 years. We I had two different coaches. I had Coach Ron Clark, who played at Manual. He went on to got a promotion the next year, got a job coaching at Quincy College. So we had a new coach, Harry Anderson, who was from Pekin, played the pros with the White Sox. Was Pekin High School's old coaches, retired, came out of retirement to coach us. Next year, I went to McMurray to play for Coach Don Tim, who's from coached at Springfield Griffin, Sacred Heart. And then he was only there a couple of years, and I played 3 years. I redshirted 1 year. My last year at McMurray, I had another ex-pro. I had an ex-Cub player by the name of Randy Martz, who was a rookie pitcher of the year for the Cubs. And he himself was a Cinderella story. So I had played for 4 different coaches, 4 years in college, which was really good in a way that I learned something different from each one. They each had a different style, but I did learn something different, which I thought that was a good experience. Quick note on Randy Martz, Cinderella story. He was a passing quarterback at the University of South Carolina. Didn't play college baseball until his senior year. Senior year, they got a new football coach. They wanted to run the option. He didn't get to play much as a senior quarterback. Baseball coach asked him to go out because he had a good arm, had a natural slider from throwing a football, and he ended up. The University of South Carolina ended up winning the College World Series that year, the only year they've ever won the College World Series, and he was the MVP and got drafted by the Cubs. So it was kind of a unique story.
That's crazy. What are the odds of that happening? Yeah.
I think he was 13-0. You can look it up. So
wow. So he went from never playing baseball at the college level to then being a starting pitcher and winning them a World Series. Wow. That's a heck of a story.
yeah. So a lot of good memories, a lot of good friendships, a lot of good relationships still from teammates and people I've competed against too. So I respect a lot of them, and then I earn the respect of them as well. So it's been good. Baseball has been very, very good to me.
Okay. And then you mentioned that Daryl Klusendorf got you involved with Sunday Morning League. How old were you? What year in college?
So that was after my senior year in high school.
Okay.
I didn't play until my senior year. I played Legion, and then I went to ICC in the fall, and then I played for him the next summer, which would have been '83. Actually, when we were playing in the fall at ICC, our coach Klusendorf's Todd's uniform team actually came over and scrimmaged us at ICC, and I think maybe Daryl must have seen me there, or I remember Mike Deering, their third baseman. He was an intimidating person. He was as wide as a truck, had this Fu Manchu, and he never got cheated on a cut. And I would later be teammates with him, so it's kind of funny playing against him, and then that actually ended up being my summer team for 9 straight years. Then I played for some different teams after that. So.
Okay. What was the league like whenever you joined? Was it normal for a young kid to join the Sunday Morning League at that time and start playing right away?
Yeah, it was a very competitive. A lot of high school seniors, college players playing, but then you also had the veterans. Like Daryl still played. We had a couple other veterans, pitchers, Rick Disman, hitter Greg Maloney. There was several other pitchers, and it was more probably 50% college kids, 50% veterans. Still very competitive. Of course, it was aluminum bat, so that kind of helped even the playing field for the veterans. And Daryl did a good job. Always had a competitive team. Managers back then pretty much just tried to word of mouth or got with coaches, high school coaches, or like the ICC coach, tried to get a lot of local players. Daryl got a lot of the limestone kids. So I played with Mike Dunn on that team, and that's another favorite memory of mine, was I caught Mike Dunn in the summer of 1984, right before he went out to the Olympic team and played for the Olympics, and then he ended up getting drafted #1 by the Cardinals. Unbelievable. So I actually caught 3 major league pitchers. Mike was one of them. Bill Sampson was another one from Hartsburg Emden. He played at McMurray with me. He got drafted by the Pirates in 1985, and then Mark Clark got drafted from McMurray by the Cardinals in 1987. And he ended up pitching for the Cubs. So I've caught all three. That's kind of fun, being able to catch 3 different pitchers, 3 different styles. And I will tell you, Mike Dunn had the best stuff out of all 3 as far as natural ability, and his ball moved, heavy ball, and broke hard. But they all had their own little niches. Sampson worked his butt off. He had the best changeup, and Mark Clark had huge hands, and he threw this split finger because his hands were so big. So all different types, fun experiences.
Yeah, what was the league like at that time? How many teams were there, and did you guys still only play on Sundays at that time?
So we had 8 teams still back then, and what they did was they had 2 divisions, 4 teams in one and 4 in another, and then they did that for a while. If you won your division, then you played the other division for the championship.
Okay.
So there was only 2 winners, or 2 that got to go there. And then later on they ended up doing a first half and a second half. So it gave you a little bit more, because we got to a bad start. And then, so there could be more than just the 2. We always had 8 teams, I can remember back then. But we did play earlier, and we did play Wednesdays still on Sundays. So we played 40 to 42 games back then for my first several years in the league. I'm not sure when they switched to starting later. Probably not until I was at least halfway through my career.
Okay. And what are some of your more, if you could think back, I know you've been involved a long time, but what are some of your more memorable moments of when you were a player in the league playing?
So one of my best memories was we played at Glen Oak, what the zoo is. So I hit one ball into the zoo. So that was one of my. I've only hit one there, so I can remember that. And it was actually a grand slam, so I'll never forget that. And then I remember when Doug Slusher was pitching, he might have told you this story already, and I was playing on his team. And Ryan Alexander hit one into the zoo, but it hit a tree on the way. It hit a leaf. And Ryan's rounding the bases and rounding in second. Doug just happened to say something under his breath to the umpire. He said, "Didn't I hit the branch?" And then the umpires got together and they called it a ground rule triple.
Wow.
So they brought it back. Ryan was hot. And then Doug, the best, being the competitor he is, pitched out of the inning and didn't give up any runs that inning.
Wow.
So that was a fun story. Daryl had a lot of. Daryl's dad owned a restaurant at the Sky Harbor, so we would go after games, the weeknight games, Wednesday. They would go to his restaurant and eat. Have a lot of memories of that. They would bring out chicken for us, and we'd sit there and talk about the game. And Daryl's dad would record the game, and sometimes we'd watch the game too. So a lot of memories there with Daryl, and it was usually Disman and Greg Maloney, Rick Disman, Greg Maloney, Ty Elliott would go. A lot of the players from Pekin and Limestone. Brad Wood played on that team. He was from Limestone. Like I said, we had a lot of Limestone guys. Daryl had a Limestone connection. So.
Have you ever had the pleasure of winning the championship as a player?
Yeah, so we did win for Miller, we won in 1993, I believe, or 94. It's one of those years. I think it was 93. And then the next year, Rick Disman took over the presidency from Klusendorf. And then one of his things was we got to go play at Busch Stadium. And the way they did it was the league winner would play against an all-star team from the league. So I think that was 94. So we won the league in 93. So the Miller team went next year, and then we played like an all-star team from the league. And that's another good memory. We started playing, it was in the afternoon, so the Cardinals played that night. We played before them like at 1 o'clock, and then we had tickets for the game that night.
Okay.
And it was a real hot, humid day, and we got about 5 or 6 innings in, and it started just to sprinkle, and then they called the game. And back then they had the tarps would run around, they would pop up,
Okay.
and then come out. And I remember the story about Vince Coleman when he kind of got hurt on one of those, stepped into that. It's like sprained his ankle or something. That was back in the old Busch Stadium, 1994, when it was still a big stadium and the old turf. So we played, got done, got called. We got to take a quick shower there and go get something to eat, come back and watch the Cardinals play. They played Miami or Florida Marlins that night. Dante Boucher hit a home run, I can remember that. And then a lot of us went to the landing, which is right on the river there, about a couple blocks away from Busch, and had fun hanging out there. So that was another good memory.
Okay. You mentioned guys like Doug and Daryl. Are there any other names that come to mind on some memorable relationships that you've built through your time playing and being involved with the league?
Sure. So I played many years with Doug and Mike Kraft. We probably played on the same team for 18 to 20 of my 28 years, all three of us, and then we end up all three of us kind of running, coaching Illinois Furniture and Miller, Terry Elmore. So after I got done playing with Daryl, so I have a brother-in-law who was in the league. He played 80 through 89. He was actually the player of the decade for the 80s. His name's Mike Zobrist. And so he was on Budweiser. And when Don Weiss retired, he ended up coaching that team. And so I ended up wanting to play with him for a year. So I got traded for 3 players. It was 3 for 1, but the 3 players were from Canton. And played with my brother-in-law for the 1990 season, which was back then called Budweiser, which was the old United Ready Mix. And I only played 1 year because Mike took over that year, and when he managed the team, he did not like managing. It's a whole different animal. And he ended up retiring after that year. And so then I ended up going and playing with Terry Elmore of Miller. And we played with him for a few years until Terry retired. And then we got our own team, Furniture. So that's kind of where, when I was on Miller then, Slew ended up coming on Miller, and so did Mike Kraft. So that was in the early 90s. And then I played, I think my last year was 2010. So all those years we played with those guys. Those were the 3 main ones. Played with Donnie Severe was on another one. I played a lot of years. Played with and against him as well. Then Mike Dunn, when he got done with his pro career, he came back and managed a team called Pitcher Perfect was their sponsor, and that's where I ended up playing my last few years with him, Doug and I. So and Mike as well.
Okay. You mentioned being a player and a manager earlier. How is it like switching from only having to show up and play to then being responsible for all the different things involved with managing?
It's a lot easier being a player, for sure. Yeah, I enjoyed being a player more than a manager. Manager, you're always worrying about staying at one step ahead of everybody. The game, not only the game, trying to get everybody in, trying to win the game, and yet, when to take your pitcher out, when to leave him in. there's all sorts of decisions to be made. And then also making sure you're going to have enough players. I had one forfeit in my long career of managing, and that I did not want that to happen ever again. So that's the worst feeling in the world, not having enough guys. It's bad for the league. So this year we had 20 guys on the roster. Probably had at least 12 to 13 guys every game, which was fine. And if everybody showed up, then we had problems getting everybody in. But I'd rather have it that way than the other way. But yeah, managing is a whole different animal, and I can see as a player manager, you probably don't play as well because you got too much on your mind. When you just come and show up, it's a lot easier. Play a lot better.
So, a lot of our conversation so far has been about your time playing, but a lot about these industrial and recreational leagues or how they impact the community, not only with their sponsors, but various events. So, does anything come to mind when you think of how you've seen the league interact with Peoria and the surrounding community?
Well, probably everybody's stated this before. It's Peoria Sunday Morning is the oldest amateur league in the country, and it's still going and still strong league. And that's their goal, is to keep it going, and it also has stats back to day one, which is really remarkable. And in the old days, I think it was more people come out. They played on Sunday, so people would come out after church. They'd get bigger crowds, and they'd pass the hat around. And now it's like you said, it's evolved into more of a collegiate league. So it's a little different, playing on different fields, not public parks, more private parks. But still a great league, and still very involved in the community. We've had, Illinois Furniture was the longest tenured sponsor. I think they sponsored for over 50 years. So we've had Mark Miller sponsor for as long as I can remember playing in the league. Miller's been a sponsor, so that's 40 years. So there's some community involvement there. Doug Slusher did a good job, and so Zach's doing a good job of really getting the community involved too. They get us into the Chiefs night, and we get bigger crowds, we get some more publicity that way, and the kids, all the players really enjoy that night, and getting to play on that field. That's a nice perk for the league. So.
Do you another thing with a lot of industrial leagues is you see them sort of grow into other communities, and maybe there's leagues playing other leagues. And nowadays we see a lot less industrial baseball or recreational baseball with involving men's leagues. But do you see Peoria maybe ever in the future growing into other cities, or combining leagues with something else to get more of that traveling experience for the recreational league?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there's a league at Bloomington, a collegiate league, but it's all college players. There's only 4 teams in that. It's a prospect league, and then there's a league it's called the EI League, Eastern League, and it's over by Paxton, Buckley, and Loda. And there's leagues kind of like ours. They have a mixture of college kids and veterans. And we've actually played like all-star team against their all-star team, like over 4th of July when there's a break. We went up to Chicago, played them at the Lothian team. But yeah, as far as I don't know, traveling like that, it's always been more of just a local play in Peoria. I don't know. That's probably a better question for Zach, because I would not be the one that probably want to head start that.
No worries. So you mentioned how it's kind of gone from more of a men's league to a college league, and the metal bats to wood bats. Does anything else stick out to you with how the league's changed from when you started to now?
Fences on them. So outfielders could play as deep as they wanted. I mean, you'd hit balls that would be home runs, but the outfielders would run them down. So that's one thing. And the infields were all dirt, so now we have a nice facility with the east side. Both fields are really nice, and then turf in the other one, so they're both going to be turf. And our other field we used was Pure Notre Dame High School. We used Richwoods High School, so they're all good fields compared to two dirt diamonds that were our main fields for years. Bradley Park and Glen Oak. So we had 2 diamonds each, so those are 4 games every weekend. They had 2 at Glen Oak and 2 at Bradley.
Okay. We talked a little bit about sponsors today, but how specifically would a sponsor go about maybe joining the Sunday Morning League and representing a team?
Yeah, that's the sponsorship for the team. The team sponsor for the year is only $500, which isn't that much, and you get some publicity with that. I would say any they could contact any team manager or contact Zach would be the one to contact for sure on that if they wanted to get involved in that and get some exposure. Our sponsors, the Tin Lizard Bar and Grill, which is at the East Peoria Boat, and they've been our sponsors the whole time. They've been great sponsors. Yeah, I would say Zach's got the league moving forward as far as trying to get more people involved with our like sponsoring our championship series, so they get their name on the scoreboard, get in the programs. But to be a team sponsor and add a team, we would entertain that as well. We've got 8 teams now, so any team wanted to, it's marginal next year. There was a team that wanted to join this year, and they just didn't quite pull the trigger because we already had 8. It's harder to schedule for 9, and then in the past, the new teams have not been as competitive, so we just kept it like it was. But every year things change, and Zach's very open to that, or having a 9th team if they're going to be competitive, and maybe even growing it to 10. So 10 might be easier for scheduling, as long as we can get the field. Right now, the hardest part, I guess, is having enough fields, because we only have 2 at the east side, so we've got to have 2 more.
Okay. Yeah. Well, kind of more in closing now, kind of looking towards the future. You've mentioned all your various different roles. You've been in the league in a long time. What do you see moving forward for yourself in terms of what you're going to keep doing to stay involved?
Well, I want to get some younger people involved, especially managing the team I'm on, the Titans. And I have a couple guys in mind. I will help them out. I'd still be involved, but I'm trying to get some younger guys involved so they can keep it going for the next 20, 30 years. Like I was involved. I've been involved for 40 years. I'd kind of like to step down, have a lesser role. I'd still, like I said, I would help out. I wouldn't leave them there to do it all by themselves, but I would show up when I could, coach first, but maybe not be the head coach. So that's where I see my role in the next few years. So gradually stepping back and having Mike Kraft's boy, Cooper Kraft, he's my candidate. He's 25. I'd love for him to take it over if he wants to. So he would be my first choice.
Okay. And another question: do you think the league's in a good spot right now?
I think it's a very good spot. We have 8 good sponsors. We have 8 competitive teams. I mean, if you look back, all the teams were bunched up. Nobody ran away with it. Everybody had 6, 7 losses, 8, 9, 500 teams. So the top 6 teams were all competitive. Even the bottom 2 were very competitive, even though they didn't finish. What helps is keeping that everybody makes the playoffs. That really keeps everybody involved. Because if you're, like, for instance, this year was weird because the Expos, they had the best record last year, and this year they had the worst record, which was really weird because they had kind of you lost some pitchers, but once you get towards the end of the season and you're and you're not in the top 3 or 4 teams, players stop showing up. But making sure every team is in the playoffs, I think that keeps the interest there and keeps players showing up, which is good.
Yeah, and then kind of one final question. What advice would you have for, young kids graduating high school looking to try to get involved in the league? How would you kind of help prepare them to be successful?
Start hitting with a wood bat, number one, and then if they have any friends that are in the league, start talking to them, and then for sure sign up for that tryout. That tryouts every year. It's in May. It's at the weekend before Memorial Day every year, and they can come to that or just keep playing. And I'll tell you another story. They didn't have to play. Terry Elmore was our manager. He's got the most career hits in the league total. He didn't even play in high school, and he's got the most career hits.
That's awesome.
So he got involved in the league. He was playing on my high school coach was Coach Mike McDonald. He played at Pekin for Harry Anderson. Harry coached me at ICC. McDonald coached me at Morton. Coach McDonald played with the Cardinals, or he got drafted by the Cardinals, played double A with the Cardinals. He grew up in the same neighborhood with Terry Elmore. He was playing Sunday morning league one day. He didn't have enough guys. He asked Terry to show up. That's how Terry got involved with the league. Terry got on a team and never stopped playing.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this interview. I think that's about all I got for you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.